I wanted to go under the radar, but that didn't happen. And I'll be honest, on that morning it kind of hit me that that's a lot of games, and to do it with really two teams and one owner, I thought it was pretty special. And you can't help but go through it all. A lot of highs and some lows, but to be able to withstand it with some really good people, I think made it pretty special. That means I've been around a long time, but it's special. I think the players and the people I've had to work with, and I think the fact that I did it with two teams, I don't know that you can do that again in sports. And Butch Johnson gave me an opportunity, and actually Mason City Youth Hockey, and then Butch Johnson believed in me and bought the Huskies from the organization. And I think the players, it's the players, other coaches I've worked with, guys I've coached against, teams I've coached against, players in different teams now, and it's a pretty neat thing, I guess. So many games, and I take a lot out of all of them. There was some really good ones. There were some stinkers as well, and you can't help but think about what we did in Waterloo with the Clark Cup, that game with that many people, and kind of rallying around the Black Hawks being back and beating a really good team in Tri-City and a great coach in Bliss. That was special. Just a lot of them. So many great players and against great players and great coaches. I don't know if I can pick just one or two. They're good or bad. They've all been there. They've all helped me. They've helped the guys that have played the game. And the fact that I'm still standing here after 1,000, I think it has to really go to the players that have played either in Mason City or Waterloo, and trainers and assistant coaches. It was a dream. I got an opportunity to see the league as an assistant at UW Eau Claire, and I thought as I was traveling through Iowa, that would be a pretty cool thing to be able to do, and I was fortunate to do that. And that first game, I might have threw up a few times before, but it was busy. It was really a one-man show. I was adjusting beverage coolers so that could get done. I sold a few tickets, believe it or not, making sure the advertising was done, and doing the game program, and then get behind the bench. So those are fun memories. The game hasn't changed, but the league has certainly changed from those times. But I feel fortunate to be able to have come up in an era that is special. And the guys back then that coached in the league, Frank Serratori, Bob Ferguson, Scott Owens, those guys, they did everything, and it's pretty neat. Well, we were a league for players that were looking for an opportunity after high school, maybe not ready for college, just to get a scholarship. Older players. There weren't that many college teams back then either. So if you got to play in the league, the chase was on, and I think those things are a little bit different. I think our players are. Some of them have commitments now more than not, and it's still about that. But I think we're developing guys and trying to get guys drafted to continue their career in professional hockey, and I think the league's been pretty successful. I think the other big difference is the ownership has gotten pretty powerful, and there's some serious dollars invested by the people that own the teams, and that's changed, and I think it's given opportunities for coaches, young and old, and players certainly. We're playing in beautiful arenas where our locker rooms are always being upgraded. I think the standards of the league that have been put in place to increased the professionalism have been terrific, and you know, it's a true training ground for an elite athlete. Well, lots of them, really. You go back to Mason City, and you know, we were a team that didn't have much, but you know, you look at guys like Mike Rusinski and Matt Noga that came in and kind of laid a foundation for some success in the late 90s. You know, Shane is obviously my assistant, and he was one heck of a hockey player. Nate DiCasimiro, John Cullen, Andy Firmoil. I don't want to forget anybody, but back in those days, you guys that believed in what I was selling, and that was a chance to play and really get an opportunity in college. And then you go on to Waterloo, and you look at, we had some good goalies early on, boy, and Jeff Jakaitis and Jordan Parisi, and then Kevin Regan obviously won us the Clark Cup, and obviously Joe Pavelski and Joel Hansen, Uriah Hayes. I'd like to say all of them. And J.T. Brown, who's one heck of a player, Tyler Barnes, and I really, Brian, I don't want to forget anybody, because I'll be honest, from the best player that I've ever coached to maybe the guy that wasn't the greatest, you know, they all partook. And I'm not the greatest coach in the world, but I think what I've sold is it's all of us, and it's not about one guy. And at the end of the day, you got to be able to hold your head high that you did it the right way, the best you could, and you played for the team and the crest and the guys in the room. Yeah, I've said it a thousand times. I think the USHL is an unbelievable training ground of life. It's hard, you know, and I think players that get through it have a really, not that other people don't, but I think players that get through this league and can stick with it, whether they play a game of hockey after or not, whether they go on to play in the NHL, the AHL, professional hockey, and the ECHL. You know, pro hockey to me is pro hockey. If you can get there, you're a pretty good player. But if you become a doctor or you become a salesman or whatever, I think the lessons learned when the length of the season and getting off a bus and just working and working through the highs, and there's highs and there's lows, and you know, that spectrum you know, can present itself in a matter of hours, and I just think that's probably the biggest satisfaction for me, is to see players, you know, battle their way together. And you know, there's some lonely times, and that they work through it, and you get through it. And I think you look at the success stories of players that were in the 80s when it was early, and even, you know, the 70s, back when it was a senior league. Guys that can make it generally, I think, are successful in whatever they end up doing when hockey's over. It's been unbelievable. I look at Mason City when Butch bought the team, and he said, get rid of all your good players. You're not that good, and let's see if we can build a foundation. And we went through a tough year, 5 wins, and people said, you know, he shouldn't be coaching anymore. And Butch said, just, you're okay. And you know, I think, you know, to not recognize him and the impact he had on my career would be wrong. And that Mason City Youth Hockey, I still remember the interview and the opportunity they gave a young guy to come into the league, and they stuck with me. They knew we didn't have anything, but, you know, Bobby Motzko, Bob Ferguson, who was a tremendous mentor. I think you look at the coaches back then, they understood that we needed to work with everybody and try to keep everybody competitive, and they were fair and honest. And you know, I mean, ultimately, I think it goes back to my family. When you look at it, Maria has been with me in a rock and hard times and good times, and we've had our share of both with the game and the league, and I had the opportunity to coach my stepson Zane, and now he's married and has 2 beautiful kids. My grandson made the trip, so he got to see the 1,000th game and 2 wins, so that's exciting. And you know, it's Gino Gasparini, Dave Tyler, early on, I think, showed me a lot of the way. And, Troy Ward back in Eau Claire saw something in a kid that could do it. Luke Strand, who was my captain in North Iowa, has been a great friend. And, to see a Tim Mattson, a Reed Cashman coaching now and having that opportunity, there's so many people. It's a tough one to say. I wish I had 3 hours in the list of all the names, and I wish I could say it out of memory. But, I think ultimately Maria and my mother, my grandparents were able to watch me coach and had an influence on me. And it's pretty neat stuff. I don't know that some days seem worse than others, but there hasn't been a bad day when you really cut through it at the end of it, that it wasn't a good place to be in this league. And I'll be honest, I'm humbled and I'm very appreciative of the guys I've coached against, players I've coached against, to even be standing here. You know what? I don't know. You chase. I think when you start coaching, you get on the chase, and it's the next day and the next day and the next day. And like I said, there's been good and there's been bad, but I wouldn't trade any of it for anything. And did I think I'd get to 1,000 games? I'll tell you, there were some nights that I didn't think I'd get to 200 games, let alone 1,000. But the other part of it, I enjoy this level. I enjoy it. Maybe my window, I still would love to coach in the National Hockey League. I think I can. But, maybe that window's closing, and I'd be content to coach another 1,000 games if somebody give me the opportunity. It's a great league. It's a great league.